I wanted to share what Monstrous Legends has been doing. Unfortunately, with YouTube, I was doing the videos, and for some reason, and I'm not blaming YouTube, but it had just stopped traffic altogether. I was getting around 1,000 views a day, which was great, and I was making the videos, really enjoying myself. I was predominantly using AI to complete my projects, but once it stopped getting traffic, I said, you know what, I'm done. Now I could have kept doing it, and you know, I was really enjoying doing it, as I said. So, you know, I had to pull the trigger. I had to do something different. So I sat back and I just kind of waited to see if traffic would pick up again. In the meantime, I was coming up with ideas. Because I was using AI so much, I decided, well, let me switch over and let me see what else this can do. And that was probably, I don't know, it was actually like 6 months ago that my thought process changed, and I guess I should thank YouTube, honestly, which this is where you're at right now. But I'm going to change this channel over. And what had happened in that process is I started thinking to myself that, maybe I just build my own social media. Seems crazy, ridiculous, but I wound up doing it. And currently, what you see on the screen is actually the site that I created. Now, I went through AWS, and that's what I'm currently using for the site itself. So the features that I currently have are just very simple. It's create an account, sign in, and you can upload. You can set up your profile, and I'll show some of that later. But as for right now, this is the site that I created, but this is just the design. So I'm going to actually come over here and I'm going to show you. This is just some of the components of the site itself. So let me go to homepage. I wound up designing something very basic. There's categories, which I haven't actually implemented, but everything on the back end is working. So that's great. I've never ever used AWS, by the way, but I will suggest that if you're going to build something like this, definitely look into it and take it into consideration. So the first thing I did immediately was I started riffing with ideas and just creating used reusable assets and things I can kind of tinker around with. And I came up with something very basic. So you can do the sort by, which currently is active, which was great. But at some point it was challenging. At some point, maybe I'll go over that. I don't know if it's worth it, but if you think it's worth it and it could be helpful, let me know and I will try and put something together. So in this is just this page. That's just the design of it only. And then I walk through an upload page. So basically you can see that it's JPEG and PNG only. There is a specific size that you have to actually adhere to. So aspect ratio you don't. So you can do it widescreen, you can do it 1:1, just a square, and that will be perfectly fine on the images. So when you go to upload, uh, I did have a category section in the beginning. I have changed that out while I was developing. Does that mean it's never going to go in there again? No, it possibly will, but time will tell uh, if I'm going to do it or not. So then you have the uploading screen and you have the response that is succeeded, and then it's done after that. So pretty simple, pretty basic, nothing crazy. Although it seems simple, but on the back end, there was a lot to it because what I did was I basically took all of the features that Facebook and Instagram have and I plugged them into the back end. So I can access these sections now. I just don't at this point in time, only because I've gotten what I wanted completed and I moved on. So then I started thinking a little bit bigger. And and I'll go through some of this stuff as well. Then I start thinking a little bigger. Now I had a core for a side-scrolling game, and I always wanted to complete it. So I got together with a couple buddies of mine. We kind of hashed some things out. I have a cleanup artist, and he's more than just a cleanup artist. I apologize for that because he's probably going to view this and be like, cleanup artist. But I do have an artist. He's a 2D artist, very good. His name is Boomer, and he is helping with all the 2D assets for the parallax effect. And if you don't know what parallax effect is, it's basically 2D planes, and they sink in depth, so it gives it a 3D look to it, and it looks really good. And I'll share some of this in a second. But what I wound up doing was, before any of this, I went back into Figma and I started to kind of flesh out a design, some of the main character. I started to just kind of come up with ideas on enemies and their behaviors and things like that. Now, whenever you're making something like this, because I've been doing this for a long time, you have to have a design set up. If not, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You're going to be coming up with things on the fly, and sometimes that just doesn't work because you'll bottleneck yourself and you won't be able to reuse assets. And that is extremely important when doing something like this. So this, again, I'll just go over this site really quick and then I'll show it to you in function. But you have like bios, and then you can view the user's library, the artist's library themselves, and then you can click on them and it'll give you a pop-up window that shows you the image higher resolution. And this works on phone, and then I'll go to the viewed image modal. So this is just a modal, pretty simple. I do not have the likes in yet. I do have date published and the creator's name, and then image title, and then the description of the title. And that's basically where it is right now. So let me go back to the game itself. So I knew I was going to need a lot of tools. And so this was more of a kickoff than anything else. So as I went through the design part of it, I just came up with a backstory very, very quickly. And if you want to pause it on here, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but if you want to pause it and take a look at it, uh, there it is right there. So, not a major storyline, but that's still being fleshed out. And story doesn't have to come right away, but the ideas need to be there, at least some sort of baseline. So, this is what we came up with. And I don't think I have anything else on the screen now. And then we have the protagonist, and came up with a couple ideas which I really thought were kind of cool. So he's more of like a Wendigo slash lion, I guess you'll call him. And I added a little bit more to the backstory. Again, you can pause it. These are just ideas. But at the end, we were going to put armor on him, and then we decided not to. And then we went back and we decided to put armor on again. It's just the way it goes in design. So I have skills gained, and in this case, there's a spit. It's an acid spit. I have a molten slam, so basically a ground pound. I have a spectral phase, which is kind of cool. Is that when you use it, you can go through certain areas, which I have to set up, but that is not in this discussion. Then the boulder dash is just a dash upgrade, and when you get this, you can break through specific walls. You can use it as an attack. And then I have Storm Call, which is basically an area attack. And as of right now, although I called it an Storm Call, I actually set up spikes that come underneath the ground. So when he howls up in the air, all those spikes will come out, which is pretty cool. But I'm sure I'll add more to it as far as effects go. And this is where things got pretty large, and I have a series of environments that I'll be making throughout the game, and you can kind of see some of it here. These are just backgrounds for ideas, pretty large, pretty high resolution ones. So each and every area I've defined what threats are going to be there. Sinking platforms, swinging vines, although I might change that to vines that you can actually swing on but are lined up in the background, just to give it that swampy effect. And poisonous gas clouds, of course, you're in a swamp. And then here are some of the concepts that I created. A venom spitter, just a standard snake, some leeches, Why not? So each area, I only define three enemies. Does that mean that's all I'm sticking with? Probably not. Um, and then we have the corrupted forest, which is pretty cool, and defined all of that as well. Web traps, glowing mushrooms, all kinds of stuff. Uh, I have rotten tree ants, shadow stalkers, vine wraiths. So some of these I created with the intentions of reusing behaviors because every single enemy does not have to have independent behaviors. I can reuse some of that. So I'll just quickly show you the rest of it. We have the ruined battlefield. I got the enemies for that. Bone Gnashers, Warrior Spirits. Again, some of these can be reused, right? Archers, so projectile enemies. These are just flying enemies. This is for the Sandstorm Desert. And this is obviously a desert environment, so we want some beetles, and I got a Scorch Hawk in there, a Sand Lurker. So some of the stuff is pretty crazy, but all of this has to be built. Volcanic ash, fire environment, maybe underground. So you have your hounds, which is going to be a derivative of the Ice Wolf. So I can reuse those animations and those behaviors as well. Same with the Ash Spirits, like the way they operate is they when the player gets in range of them, they see them, they start moving towards them, um, and then they disappear and they leave something behind, more like a trap, and then they come up somewhere else, and then the player has to go and get at them. Um, crawlers. So as you can see, there's behavior for each and every one of them, and then I've defined reusable behaviors, explode on death, and stuff like that. And then this is currently for the vertical slice. This is what I'm working with right now. So, uh, frozen wasteland, breakable ice platforms, snow piles, icicles. Um, these characters are currently in development. I really like these. And that's why we decided to go with the ice level. Not to mention, I wanted to see contrast, so I wanted to go with the brightest to kind of see uh, how they mesh. Does it work well as far as that white on white? Because the main player, he's white, he's got white fur, so it's important to see that contrasts well. And if it does, which looks like it does so far, then yeah, we'll go ahead and we just decided to move forward. So this is another one that uh, phases in and out, and it goes to certain areas on the map that are defined. So I can have three different spawning areas that are defined in there, and it'll go from one to the other at random. And that is, again, defined with the reusable behaviors. Then I created a map of just the ice area itself. Now, each one of these areas is 100 meters by 100 meters. So defining this was very important, and you could see in the Unity that the grid is set to 100 by 100. And I just basically laid it all out in sections. And I'll show you why when I had actually gone into Unity, and I'll show you right here, is that let me remove this. That when I went into here, I wound up go ahead and creating scripts that will assist me in creating each and every one of those sections. So now that I've hidden that, let me go ahead and show you just the prefabs themselves. You'll see a lot of stuff in here. So right now, have the snow level. We've got background because these are all elements for the parallax effect. And each and every one of them has a prefab in Unity. If you haven't used prefab, basically it's a consolidation of different elements that you can reuse. So if I wanted to use this snow element, I can just drag it onto here and it'll create that for me. And all those elements are in place. So they have their materials, they have, the mesh that it's on, can it accept light, and yada, yada, yada. So all of these shaders that I put in there are custom made just because I want them to be light for performance reasons. And that's why I decided to go with that route. So these are unlit backgrounds right now for specific areas. Like right now, it's foreground, right? So I have foreground one, um, and then I have foreground two, and then I have larger environment pieces, and you can kind of see them when it loads. And I guess it's not going to load for me. No, it load. So you can kind of see some of these areas, um, if you could see it okay. Then I have another section that is for one-way platforms, which I don't have a lot of right now, but and one-way platforms right now are platforms that you can press the jump button while pressing down and it'll fall through them, which is pretty standard in a 2D platforming side scroller. So that's in there. So I just wanted to show you that, and then um, the 100 meter by 100 meter blocks are just for testing purposes. So now let me go back into this here. So that's the level layout. And again, keep this in mind because I'm going to show you the rest in a second. And I defined where bosses would be, and then each and every area has specific sections. And in this case, it's Icy Cavern Zone, and I think this is where you're going to start. And that will be over here somewhere. So right now, I've laid out all the way to 5.5, and I'll show you that in a second. And then last but not least is the Storm Mountain Peak. And I have some Rock Titans, some flying creatures, a Sky Razor, and then again the Storm Wisp, which this will probably do the same thing that the phase in and out characters use. There'll be an attack, and maybe the attack will be different, but all of this is reusable. So that's why I went down that path. So let me go into that was just a concept piece. And then I have bosses, which obviously in a game like this, you're going to need bosses because you need to have something big to fight against. You need something to unlock. You need some form of reward. In this case, you have Shattered Colossus, Snake, Forgotten Wraith, Big Wolf, Corrupted Guardian. He's pretty cool. And then the Sandstorm Devourer. So he's pretty cool as well. So a lot of work needs to be done. Oh, the final one. This is the final boss, which I shouldn't really be showing you, but I am anyway. So when it comes out, still buy it. And then we're back to the social media content. So I just took these screenshots to show you. I did start with a little bit of UI, nothing overly crazy. I'm just gonna do like this is just concept art. I'm gonna start with a map up here, I believe, health bar, specials that you have, and yeah, I don't think there's too much else to do. I think on the bottom here, when you're attacking enemies, I'll probably show some form of a health bar for the enemy that you're attacking, so it'll switch out and it'll tell you what the name of the creature is. That's just an idea right now, a little concept, and that's that. And then I have my game plan, which I'm not going to go over, and then more to concepts of creation and lore and world building and yada yada yada. Okay, so that's that part. Now, let me close this out. And based on what I have shown you, I'm going to scroll all the way out here, which you cannot see. So let me go ahead and move this over here so you can see. And I'll move some of these windows. Sorry about that, but I have to do it. So let me move this console so I got a nice full screen here. I'll put that up there. So now you can see this is my test scene for enemies. So every time I go in here, I just use this for enemy testing and placeholders. So let me go ahead and open up the main scene that will show you all of the map related things that I have currently. And if I can find that scene, that would be great. So I believe it is this one. Yes. Okay, so this is huge. So prepare for a lot of scrolling. And no, that's not the right one. Of course it's not. Vertical slice. That's the one I'm looking for. Okay, so what you're going to see is a lot and a lot of content here. Because I'm streaming, it's going to be a little slower, but we'll make do. Hopefully not crash. So as you can see, the map is fleshed out. Now, I want you to keep in mind that the character is basically the size of one of these platforms. So you can see all the collider boxes on there. So he'll be about this big. So I guess you can see that. So this just shows the scale of the map itself, and it'll show some of the parallax. And these are libraries of elements that I currently have that are staying outside of the map. So let me do this. Let me show you. And this is just an example. I'll get into more dev stuff as I go along. So let me show you that those numbers are in place. Let's give you that. And then let's also give you the numbers. So now you can see that that map matches what I just showed you in Figma a second ago. So there you have it there. That again shows the sheer magnitude of what I am attempting to do. And it's going along pretty well. And I will hide these now. So let me hide these because you probably don't want to see them anymore. You want to see the good stuff. So I'm closing that out right now. And you can see all of the level right now. If I was to start right here, you can kind of see that I already did. You can see that parallax effect that's happening. You see how it's kind of moving. The background seems a little bit slower, and you can see these pieces in the front and these pieces even more so in the foreground, and they just move a tiny bit as you're going. So as you move across, it's going to give that 3D effect. Now, in this one specifically, I only have a few. So I only have one background, and that's the full background all the way distant. And then I have one, I believe, in this one that has a parallax background to it, which I don't see. So we're just going to say that it's not there. And this is the second level of the background that you see in here, and that's very close to the platforms. So the platforms themselves are on its own layer, and I have multiple cameras. I tried to avoid multiple cameras as much as possible, but in this case, I could not. So let me go ahead and just kind of scroll through some of this to kind of give you an idea of the look and feel to it. Now, each 100 meter by 100 meter section takes about 17 seconds to run through. So once you introduce enemies, you figure you're probably talking about 30 seconds of gameplay in each section. And maybe a little bit more. If you're just running through it, though, it'll be 17 seconds. You'll already see some of the actual visuals behind it, the areas to jump, and things like that. Now, a lot of this stuff also is in the process of being cleaned up, and they're pretty high resolution, so cleanup is not a big deal, but these are all designed and cleaned up, and you can see that the collision areas are in there for the player to run across, and let me just continue to go through. So you got climbable areas here where you stick to the walls when you climb up. Again, some of this is being fleshed out as we speak. So you can see some of that all the way across. Now, actually, I went through where I was supposed to go through. Oops. So let me show you as you go down, you're starting to get into more cavernous areas, and there's no lighting behind it, but that's where I stopped at that. So I'm going to go back up, just kind of give you an example, and I have like some traps. So if you land on them, you die instantly. And that's some of the vertical slice map. I think I can get you to an area that has more interesting details. The section I really fleshed out Trees are being cleaned up currently. There's a lot more going on here. A lot of traps, and you can see some of the areas that need to be cleaned up, which we're keeping very close eye on because as we run and test, we're just likely going to find more and more and more. So that is that. Now this area, you can kind of see how the parallax effect really will shine here. So, in order to do some of this stuff too on the platforms is I'm kind of covering up some of the areas that have intersecting areas that don't look right. So I just kind of cover them up and a character can run through them or behind them, I should say. So that is the level, and I will keep it at that. And as I progress, I will update everyone. So that's about as much as I can show you right now. Now, this has been in development for about 3 months now, and Monstrous Legends now has two books: the development of a vertical slice, the web portal that we created ourselves to mimic a social media site like ArtStation or Instagram. So now we have all these different elements involved, and then obviously you're on a YouTube channel, so we have that. Okay, so now let me move over to behaviors. Let me take a look if the character, and I have to get my controller, so excuse me. I'm plugging in, if I can get it in there. Okay, so I don't remember if this is, if I have my main character spawning in on this, but we're gonna find out soon enough. Okay, so I do have them in here. So you have you have camera movement so you can see where any other platforms are. So that's with the right thumbstick. And I may move the camera a little further out, but as you could see, he's jumping and moving. And again, 17 seconds. Now these are what I was talking about with the one-way platforms. I don't know what's down there, so yeah, I think that maybe I need to pull that camera out a little bit. Where we go? Whoa. And this is what I was talking about with the foreground. You'll see that the character can run right through it. And so this is kind of where we are. Pretty empty scene right now, but I'll show you the cling. See what's there. And he can claw onto things. So that is the general behaviors of the character himself. So now that you saw that, I will show you the additional behaviors. So these are upgrades. And let me go ahead and grab my main character. And she is right here. Now, I have abilities nested in here. And I will hear you. These are all the abilities that he can have. So right now, the only thing active is the jump, wall cling, horizontal movement, look around, light attack, heavy attack, which I haven't even shown the attack, but now that you see that, all I have to do is enable and disable them. But right now, I have the attacks in there. I have a heavy attack, a jump attack, and those all impact enemies already, so we're good there. So let me go ahead and turn on all of the effects that you'll get when you start unlocking things. So we're going to do dash, air dash, we're going to do attack area attack, I mean, at the digging ability, which that one's kind of cool. Again, no effects on here, but I just activated all of the specials that you'll get. So right now, I have the dash, and I somehow messed it up. Okay. Always when you're recording is when things happen. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this wall cling off because I clearly made a mistake here. Oh my God, really? Okay, let's start that over again because I don't think, I guess activating it during runtime is not something I want to do. So now you saw bugs. All right, so let me go ahead and try and do this again so I can show you. So I'm going to go to abilities and I'm going to just activate all these and I'm going to stay away from hitting walls. So the first thing, let me get us all the way down to the bottom here. So the first thing is your dash attack. You have your air dash attack. He's got a little uppercut at the end. You have your ground pound, important, right? Have your area attack. Boom. So I'll probably put like some form of lightning or something like that. And then this one was an idea that we came up with rather than ducking, because in a lot of games you duck. And I felt, I want to try something different. So I did a dig attack. So he goes underground. And then when he jumps out, he has like a super jump. And there's that. So hopefully that bug doesn't take place again, but I will fix it. So it's fast, it works well. And then I have the double jump. I haven't decided if that's going to be right out of the gate or if that's an upgrade. Probably an upgrade. I have a set of wings that go on it, and that was from another, that was from the original concept that I have. And everything is pretty tight right now, besides that bug I just showed you. So let me turn this off now. So now you've seen all level. This is just where we are right now. And I want to talk about one more thing that is really important to my level design process. So if you look at here, let me turn off this background so you don't see it. So all of these elements that are right here, let me also turn off the helpers so you can see. All of these elements are elements that were created and being cleaned up as we speak, as I said before. So all of these elements are just part of the elements, and each one of them that I've made has colliders on it. So if I turn this back on, you'll be able to see that each one of them has the colliders. Those are your green outlines, and those are on every single one of them. So I basically can drag and drop these, and they're all prefabs, and that's why it's blue. If you can see that, yes, you can see it. And there's just some of the areas that I have, and then that's all platforms. Then I have additional elements for decorative purposes, and some of them will be turned into platforming areas, wall climbing areas, something like this. We're going to split down the middle and then clean it up down here. And rather than background, we're going to turn this into platforming areas. So a lot of cool stuff here. You see like the rounded edges and jagged edges, so they'll kind of seamlessly fit. And that is that. Just more decorative stuff, nothing crazy. Then icicles for the ceiling, traps for the ground and the walls. So those are just a couple elements. And now there are more elements, but I won't get into all of that. I think I've gotten into enough. So one of the things that I'm also going to share with you about this project is that when creating all of these little elements that I just showed you, is that all these textures get generated. And when you're generating them, you wind up with dozens, hundreds. In our case, we ended at 200 uh, elements to bring into the game, and that's just for the ice level. Now, got to be careful with resources because it can get extremely large, and I want to try and avoid that because at some point I want to send this vertical slice out to people if they're um, supporters, and this way they can play it and give feedback and make it more of a social thing. So back to what I was about to say is that when I have each and every one of these textures, I would have to do this process manually. So I created my own shader that creates its own materials. If you don't know about all this stuff, that's okay. I would say look it up because I'm not going to explain what materials and shaders and textures do. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you understand it. If not, comment below and ask any questions, and I'll try and respond as much as possible. So with each and every one of these textures, I would have had to do this manually. Would have to go in, create the texture, bring the texture in, make a material out of the shader, apply that texture to the material, and that would have been just one, and then make it into a prefab so I can drag and change and stuff and things like that. So one of the things that I guess in game development that I always keep in mind is reusability and optimization. And optimization, when I say optimization, I don't mean performance, but I mean production. So an artist comes in, and rather than them having to put all these things together, I've automated this process. So if you were, I'll just open it and I won't get into all of the details of it. I'll just explain exactly what it does in tools. I've made a couple tools that are here, and the one is replace a prefab parallax section generator. So, and then batch material prefab creator. So this is that tool. So basically all you do is you take your textures, and I guess I'll drag one or two on here. Let's see, where are my textures? Go into art, snow, and then I'll have a texture here. So right now I'm selecting 21 textures. I drag them into the texture window. Boom, it shows all of them, right? I can hit create materials. Oh, no, I don't. I go to the shader and I select my shader. In this case, I'm just going to drag and drop it. So I'm going to my section here, and I am going to select my unlit backgrounds. That's my shader. So now that this is all said and done, I go to create my materials and I save it into the directory that I want to. In this case, I'm just going to do a test right now so I can show you. And that test will be deleted later. So I just select the folder. It goes through the whole thing. You can see it's running through it. And right here, you probably can't see it on the screen, but it is importing the assets and going through them all. So this will take a second, not too big of a deal. What it's doing right now is it's going through each and every one of them if it didn't create it already. So there it goes. It's batching them in. And while it's doing that, this shows you that it's created them successfully. We are good there. So now I'm going to go into switch screens here. I am going to go into the test folder we just created. And as you can see, it created a materials directory. And each one of this is everything it generated. So I have one for background, I have three for backgrounds. You can see that they're all there. And this works with transparencies and everything else. So it created all of these different sections, right? So now, if you look at the prefabs, which is here, it also created all of these. These are all the things that I can just drag and drop into the scene itself, and it'll automatically populate. So one of the other things is that it puts itself on a layer. So foreground in my case right now, because I have foreground selected, and then I have background, which is on that layer. And this is extremely important, is then I have platforms, and that ends up on the platforms. Platforms is everything that a player can interact with. So I am going to now go back to my other screen. Oops. And another tool that I created, let me delete my test here. I'll take a second because it's a lot. Yeah, that's taking a lot longer than I expected. Sorry for the delay. It will finish, I promise. tests, delete those, gone. So no more test scene. So now another tool that I created for elements is when you are in a scene and you're laying out a map. So one of the things that I was struggling with was that what happens if I want to replace a prefab, right? So I'll drop this in here. So I created this script and it's very simple. It's a replacement prefab. So it's going to take the scale from here. So that is sometimes I'll have to adjust. But if I go back in, I'm on the other screen right now. If I go back into my environment, which is right here, should have a prefab section here. So let's do this here. Platforms, you know what? I'm not even going to sweat it. I'm just going to drop this. Let's see, this one? Yeah, let's drop that one in there. It's a big one, so the sizes won't match. So I just select this, drop it in here. When I say in here, I meant in here because the screen wasn't on. I select my object and I hit replace. Boom. So now I can just continuously replace them, and that's